There are lots of ways you can remember the difference between Paleolithic and Neolithic. One of them, obviously, the paleo diet is very basic, so the Paleolithic age then would be the oldest, most basic. Neo starts with an N, Neolithic, just like new starts with an N, so that would refer to the New Stone Age. However, I like to think of things in terms of cartoons, so that's what we're going to do today. So let's start with Captain Caveman. This cartoon from the late 1970s and 80s was the world's first superhero. Note that when they find him, he was in a block of ice, indicating that he was preserved by the Ice Age. He has a cape and a club, which are pretty basic compared to the tools that superheroes like Superman and Wonder Woman have. If you watch any of the old episodes, you'll see that some of the utilities that pop out of his club are kind of advanced, which would indicate that maybe his real superpower was the fact that he had some sort of connection with the Neolithic Stone Age that was approaching.
Set free by the teen angels from his prehistoric block of glacier ice comes the world's first superhero, Captain Caveman. Now the constant companion to the teen angels, Brenda, Dee Dee, and Taffy in their hilarious and sometimes scary mystery missions. Get ready for Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels.
And of course there's Fred Flintstone. Everyone knows Fred Flintstone. He was just an average family guy. No superpowers, just a dude who worked, bowled, and walked his dinosaur dog. But Fred had something that Captain Caveman did not, and that was a home. Fred lived in a community, he had a family, he had friends, he had a job, and until the Neolithic age, humans were hunting and gathering nomads, which is what Captain Caveman was. So you can also compare the tools that the two had. Fred had some crazy tools. Wilma had a dishwasher that was a woolly mammoth who sprayed her dishes clean through his trunk. And Fred has a snapping turtle lawnmower with wheels that make it faster and a handle so that he can steer it better. All these are just silly things on cartoons, but they really do indicate the principles of the Neolithic age. So let's do a quick comparison between the two cartoon characters, Paleolithic Captain Caveman and Neolithic Fred Flintstone. Captain Caveman has limited speech where Fred Flintstone is fully conversational. Captain Caveman lacks polish and has some crude behavior, but Fred Flintstone at least attempts to be gentlemanly. Sometimes he falls flat on that, and his wife is quick to point it out. Paleolithic Captain Caveman depends on the teen angels to a large degree because he's not familiar with the world around him, especially being brought into the 70s, from the Ice Age. That would have been a big deal. Wilma tends to the home, but Fred Flintstone is the main provider there. Captain Caveman doesn't work. Fred Flintstone has a job at the gravel pit. Captain Caveman has no hobbies. Think about that. Out of all of these things, in addition to the tool, this to me really speaks as far as the Paleolithic aspect of Captain Caveman, because the Paleolithic people didn't have time for hobbies. They were hunting, they were gathering, or they were moving to the next place where they would immediately start hunting and gathering. There was no leisure time. Fred Flintstone, however, in his Neolithic era, has time to bowl. He loves bowling. He also gets into other things, other schemes and plans with his best friend Barney, because he has this extra time on his hands. Captain Caveman has no system of currency, but Fred Flintstone earns wages and buys things. And lastly, Captain Caveman lived in a cave, and Fred Flintstone lived in a house inside a community. So in conclusion, I hope you're convinced that Captain Caveman represents the Paleolithic era and Fred Flintstone represents the Neolithic. In conclusion, in terms of Stone Ages, basic equals Paleolithic and advanced or new equals Neolithic.